Pearl Harbor is the event that launches the United States into World War II, as it was a direct attack on American military forces on an American base. On December 7th, 1941, Japan launches a surprise attack on the U.S. naval fleet at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. This is an attempt to hinder the ability for the United States to respond to Japanese expansion in Asia. Leading up to the attack, Japan had been engaged in war with China and expanded into Southeast Asia to places such as Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Many of these regions were under the control of European powers and served as colonies for European nations. The European powers were preoccupied with the war in Europe and were thus unable to oppose Japanese expansion into these territories. On this slide, you can see a map of Japanese expansion starting in 1931 and leading up until just after the attack on Pearl Harbor. We can see that Japan expanded from its island up to Manchuria, which is northeastern Asia, into China, as well as Southeast Asia and the islands in the Southwest Pacific. Japan had been looking to grow its empire and acquire more resources to fuel its war machine. Critically, they relied on oil imports to do so. In protest of this expansion, the United States halted trade with Japan, cutting off their supply of oil, which Japan needed to continue its expansion. Japan knew it could seize oil fields in the Dutch East Indies, but doing so would provoke an attack from the United States. In response to this, Japan began preparing for an attack on the United States in hopes of reducing their ability to respond militarily to any further Japanese expansion. On Sunday morning, on December 7th, Japanese warplanes from Japanese aircraft carriers bombarded the U.S. bases on Oahu, strategically targeting the naval fleet stationed in Pearl Harbor. They chose a Sunday morning because they knew many Americans would be on leave or not present on the bases, so the chances of an immediate response to reduce the effectiveness of the attack would be weakened. Fighter aircraft escorted bombers, torpedo planes, and dive bombers from Japanese aircraft carriers to the island of Oahu, where they attacked Air Force bases and attempted to sink or damage as many naval ships as possible. In about 2 hours' time, the attack killed 2,403 Americans, wounded 1,178 more, and sunk or damaged 21 ships, including 8 battleships. Many aircraft from nearby air bases were also damaged or destroyed. This dealt a devastating blow to American naval power in the Pacific and weakened the U.S.'s ability to respond to further Japanese expansion. 3 U.S. aircraft carriers were not in the harbor that morning. Their survival would be instrumental to the outcome of the war and would play key roles in battles to come. In reaction to the attack, the U.S. president worried about fighting on 2 fronts and thought that the U.S. military was not immediately ready to fight in both Europe and the Pacific. FDR advocated for the need to build up forces. This would take a while, though, and meant that it was likely America would suffer many defeats early on. The next day, on December 8th, FDR asked for a declaration of war in a speech he gave to Congress. Congress quickly approved, and shortly after, Germany and Italy also declared war on the United States. This also destroyed the cause of isolationism. Isolationism was no longer the popular policy, since Americans had been directly attacked. Many who were in favor of isolation previously now wanted to fight back.